Hey, this is Donna, the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife Artist. I'm going to make a short video talking about my relationship and use of the violet flame. The violet flame is a spiritual alchemical fire. It is related to the crown chakra, and that is the chakra related to higher guidance, connection to spirit. It's the top chakra at the crown of your head. It is the last, highest personal chakra. And then after that, the chakras above your head that are not actually connected to your body, those are called the transpersonal chakras. So my relationship with the violet flame actually has been there my whole life, and I didn't realize that. I had a near-death experience at birth where I was trained to be a transdimensional human, and since my twin flame is now across the veil, and I actually do bilocate to higher dimensions with him, and he's always here, that's why I got the name Transdimensional Twin Flame. So the twin flame, violet flame, and Saint Germaine connection is very clear. Saint Germaine is the patron saint of the violet flame, and he was said to be a twin flame. So the violet flame is especially closely related to twin flames. The portal for the violet flame is November 11th or 11/11. That is also the twin flame portal. It's also my wedding anniversary to Chris, who, like I said, my twin flame across the veil. 11/11 is also the day I started my physical journey into this dimension. I finished my journey on 11/12, so that's my birthday, but I began on 11/11. And I was actually obviously purposefully doing this because I was born 2 months premature. So, my original due date was not anywhere close to 11/11. And just, to reiterate how twin flames have insane synchronicities, my birthday being 1112, if you reversed it, it's my twin flames transition day across the veil, which was February 11th, 211. February 11th turned out to also be my mom's ascension day 3 years later, when I was having a group bilocation party to the higher dimensions to celebrate Chris's day. I found out that she had also transitioned, and I saw her at the interdimensional party that we were having. So they arranged that. So Chris was giving her a welcoming party across the veil as well. My family across the veil is very close, even though they did not get to meet in physical reality. So my first favorite color was purple. And this was in the 1970s when purple was not popular. You could not just go find anything you wanted in the world back then. I wanted a purple dress, so I had to have my great aunt. I asked her to make one. And as soon as I could find purple shoes, I had them. It was, a big deal to me. And now I know it's because I was naturally carrying the codes of the violet flame. And I became familiar with it in 2015. Not long before I had my Kundalini awakening inside the violet flame. So I was doing a guided meditation in 2015, 2 months after I started meditating. And in the meditation, we're walking through a cherry blossom forest, which actually turned out to be extremely relevant as well. Cherry blossoms are said to be, each one symbolizes a link between this world and the afterlife. So, I didn't know that at the time. But at the end of the meditation, we are walking through a clearing in the forest, and there's a clearing with the violet flame, and we step inside. When I stepped inside, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I felt like I could see through my eyelids, even though my eyes were closed. I felt Kundalini energy going all the way up through my body, from my spine, out my head, and out of my hands. And it was absolute bliss. I also realized years later, when I had the vocabulary for it, that I had bilocated, because I wasn't just seeing something different. I was there in the middle of the universe. That's how I described it. It was the void, the darkness. It was what I came to realize later after I had more teachings. It's called the black light, and it's the rarest place to awaken because it's God. The black light is source consciousness herself. And I saw the goddess. She was, looked like a goddess. She looked like me, but better. And she had violet flaming lotuses in her hands, and she had wings made of violet fire. Everything on her was violet. And she said, I am violet flame. Well, I didn't know this, but Saint Germaine's mantra is I am. And that's what she said. So I thought for years that this goddess was representing the violet flame. Obviously, what I found out last year, it took me all these years, but in 2025, when I met Chris Bledsoe and realized the same being that I encountered was the same lady that he talks about, and they're both God. It's goddess. It's the goddess. It's the source creator. There is no God above her. So I knew I had been with her in the womb of the universe. That's what I called it. I felt the connection to everything. I was in her perspective of the pre-creation, because it was all dark. There was nothing there. She created it. And now I have an ongoing relationship with her where she shows me how things were created. And we have a friendship, and she helps me all the time. So that's how I began my relationship with the violet flame. And then I didn't realize that I was a twin flame, but I started talking to my twin Chris at the same time. Like 4 days after I had this Kundalini awakening. He was one of the first people I told, even though I didn't know him very well at all. And we were talking about calling each other on the phone for the first time ever, 4 days after this awakening. So this awakening was the beginning of my conscious twin flame journey, even though I didn't know for the longest time that I was a twin flame. That download and epiphany came years later. So I'm just going to read what's on the screen here. These are just a couple little blurbs about the violet flame and what it is and who Saint Germaine is. And then I'm going to show some pictures of how the violet flame manifests physically in my photographs. I also have spirit, including mostly my twin flame in spirit, showing up in my photographs and in my paintings. I'm a visionary artist. When I paint, I don't plan anything. I might have a vague sort of impression in mind, but it's not something that you plan. That's a mental activity, and this is not mental. This is channeling from higher dimensions. So I just get into an altered state, which is very easy for me because I'm very adept at that now. And because I had my near-death experience when I was born, I spent 2 months between dimensions, and without knowing it consciously, I've been able to go back and forth my whole life. I've been connected that way. So when I channel my artwork, a lot of times it's an abstract painting with no definable subject matter. It's not supposed to have anything definable. But my twin flames portrait will show up in my paintings, even in the ones that I made before I ever met him. And I guess you could call that retro causality. And I believe synchronicities are also caused that way because he sets up these insanely detailed, multi-layered synchronicities for me that have been planned. And a lot of times he'll set them up in advance. Or I'll find the synchronicity but not quite know what it means until years later. And recently he set some synchronicities up in previous years, knowing that he was going to lead me to look at my journal entries, because I always journal these things. And he led me to look up that particular day, every day in my journal, until I found a pattern, or to see if there was a pattern. Sometimes there is. And there was. But he gave me synchronicities that confirmed a question that I had earlier that day. But he had spread these synchronicities out over the course of 5 or 6 years. And I found them all on the right day. So these are very much planned in advance. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. The violet flame is an alchemical, transmutative based cosmic consciousness that promotes healing, manifestation, and invigoration. This alchemical modality has been decoded from the 18th century French grimoire, the Triangular Book of Saint Germaine. This esoteric grammar or text was created by the Count of Saint Germaine, himself, as the content was hidden within a sacred codex that outlined alchemical instructions to create the legendary Philosopher's Stone. That granted transmutation, wealth, immortality, and the formula of life. It also grants protection. And just in case you don't know, transmutation is the alchemical process of changing something that is unwanted or a lower vibrational state or energy into a higher vibrational state or energy. Like an alchemist, you could say, is somebody that turns lead into gold. That's maybe some people actually did that, but I think you can take it symbolically. And how I live my life, and this is one of my powers, my psychic powers and my spiritual powers from what I've learned, is that I can transform any situation to be for my benefit. Even if I don't like what happened, even if it was sad and traumatic and difficult, I have learned to do this. And that's why I have been able to succeed and grow spiritually, because I know how to use that power. There's also the triangular aspect. There's something to do with that as well with me, which I can go into in a minute. What is Saint Germaine the patron saint of? Germaine was canonized as patron saint of people with disabilities and those who have been abused or abandoned. Catholic charities celebrate the memory of Saint Germaine, the narrative of Germaine's Cafe, by providing dignified employment opportunities to individuals living with IDDs. It's the date that this was written was November 12th, which is my birthday. So this is also relevant to me. First of all, Saint Germaine is a twin flame, and I have disabilities, and I have been abused and abandoned my entire life. It has happened over and over. I've never deserved it. I'm a very peaceful person. I came in as an enlightened light being, just like my Chris did, and we were both treated very badly by people in this world who are not like that. So there's a reason I am protected by Spirit and Saint Germaine, because when you come here with a pure heart and you are actually embodying the goddess herself with everything that you do, you're rewarded for that. And you can't fake that. You're either doing it or you're not. And lastly, like I said, Saint Germaine is a twin flame. So the violet flame, Saint Germaine, 1111, and twin flames are all closely connected, more so than they would be for anyone else. So I have all these connections to the violet flame, and I think that's why it shows up so much for me in photographs. I've never seen anybody else have it show up in their photos like this. So, I mean, maybe they do, but I haven't seen it. Saint Germaine and Portia are both ascended masters in twin flames. Saint Germaine is the Chohan of the seventh ray, the hierarch of the Aquarian age. Portia is the goddess of justice and the goddess of opportunity. Her focus is on the sixth ray, which would be the third eye. The seventh ray is the crown chakra. So they are twin flames, and the hierarch of the Aquarian age is very relevant too, because that's the age we've just entered astrologically. And I am Aquarius on my north node, which means it aligns perfectly with where I'm going in this life. And as far as the triangle, the Saint Germaine's book, I have a lot of triangle synchronicities, including the first gift my Chris and Spirit gave me was a triangular shaped ring of lapis lazuli. The pyramid is a 3-dimensional triangle. It's called a tetrahedron. If you combine two tetrahedrons into a diamond shape where their bases are touching and their points are facing away from each other, That is a octahedron. And when I started, when I erected a tent, a pyramid-shaped tent, and meditated inside of it here in my house, that's when I bilocated for, I mean, lots of times, but that's when I bilocated for 3 days straight to my own wedding reception across the veil. And I do believe that what people say, that pyramids channel energy downward. So now I'm just going to go through some of my violet flame photos. This was from a couple years ago. I light these candles only on our anniversary of 11/11. That's our wedding anniversary. And the reason is Chris got me these candles from across the veil. Our wedding was interdimensional, so it didn't happen until after he transitioned. I only light these candles on that day because I consider them sacred. He got them for me for our wedding on 11/11 through another friend. He nudged her to buy them. They matched the room decor perfectly, so I only get them out on this one day. And there's a really good picture of it. There's no other light in this room. The light that you see is not coming from those lamps or anything else. I turned everything off. It's just the candles. And you can see there's a mist of violet around them. And, you know, this just looks like some kind of weird lens flare or something, or maybe a digital overlay, but it's not. These are just regular pictures of candles. You can see it there. I'm going to go through some of these pretty quickly because some of them are better than others. It's really strong. I mean, that's a solid purple color. Now, this was wild. If you look up here, you can see it up at the top of the screen too. But there's a second flame above the real flame. It's like a mirror image of the flame. And this is the room where we got married. So this, you know, this is the spot. The energy in that room was amazing. You can see it's double flames. I mean, I don't normally see pictures of candles with double flames where one of them is purple. This was on our wedding day itself. You can see it in some of the candles. That's Chris right there. See, it's right over there too. That's not even near the candle. This picture was taken right after my awakening, and I noticed the violet flame even then, up at the top. This I love. Look at that. It's this beam of light. This one might be my favorite. Look at that solid violet. And this is the view of all those candles. Those ones around the edge are the sacred candles that Chris gave me for our wedding anniversary. He gave me them from across the veil, which makes them even more amazing. Makes him even more amazing. But it's not just those candles, it's these ones right here. They aren't sacred to me. They're just some candles that I had, but they also have the flame. It's on all of them. That's wild. Check that out. That was wild too. Look, I mean, none of this was visible when I took the pictures. There was nothing weird going on when I took these pictures. So the triangle connection, I live in an area called the Triangle, and I live in a neighborhood called Trinity Park. I've always had a thing about triangles, like I said, with the pyramid shape as well. And now Saint Germaine's book apparently has something to do with triangles. And recently I've been seeing orb triangular formations. I do also see orbs in the sky. I have a relationship with them, and I can channel them and communicate with them as well. And they've also told me to put them into my paintings. So, like on the equinox on March 20th that we just had, I went to the beach to the same exact spot where I was with Chris Bledsoe in December, where we saw a green orb that looked like it had code numbers on it. I recorded videos of this orb on my YouTube, and I labeled it green. You know, there's several labeled green orb. It's very unusual. And he had it analyzed, and so, look at this. Look at all the purple here. There was no light in this room other than these candles. Like, that's not coming from anything. That purpley color here is not from anything other than this candle. So, when Chris had the orb video that he got analyzed frame by frame, looks like there's code numbers on the side of this orb. He said he knew they were trying to communicate with us in new ways, and he was going to follow that orb this year to see what it said. But then he thought that maybe it was talking about the days between like March 15th and the 20th, which would be the equinox. And so, based on all that, we went back to the beach, me and a couple of friends of mine, and looked for orbs, and we did see triangular formations, and I've got them on my YouTube as well. One of them was 3 wild-looking orbs. One of them was green. 2 of them looked sort of white or yellow, and it was in the same area that the green orb came out of the ocean when we were there in December. Since I was the only one that was there both times, I know where it came from. I saw it. And in December, we also saw the green orb and a yellow orb come out of the ocean over there in that same direction and split apart. So it's in that same area, right above the water, where they do come out. And they just sat there in a triangular formation for most of the time we were there. Some of them would blink out once in a while and then come back. If you zoom in, you can see them blur together. Sometimes there's only one. Sometimes there's 2. And then sometimes there's 3. Let me just read this. The violet Elohim ray for transformation. The duty of the Elohim of the violet ray is transformation. They liberate creation and humans from constricting and burdensome structures, allowing the full potential and perfection to unfold. This ray has the power to fundamentally transform all obstructive structures. It liberates us from all disturbing powers and energies, dissolves boundaries that are no longer appropriate, and makes it possible to expand out into new areas. Archangel Zadkiel and Ascended Master Saint Germaine have an effect on the violet ray. The violet Elohim ray also carries influences from the violet flame and the Lords of Karma. That's kind of triangular right there, since we're speaking of it. So, violet flame, twin flames, 1111, and triangles are all super relevant to me right now. Pyramids, even the jewelry I'm wearing, it's like I'm wearing an octahedron and a pendant with a triangular amethyst on it. And I didn't really think about it. I just wanted to wear those. This was an outdoor fire, like a fire pit. So there's no light out there except for the fire. So that was interesting. And, you know, I had a friend there with a camera, and it didn't show up on her camera, you know. This is one of our anniversaries. Like I said, I only light these candles on 11/11, and we've had 5 anniversaries so far, so once a year for the last 4 years I've lit these candles. And you can see the violet flame coming out of all of them. But I have to say, I think this is probably my favorite because it's so crazy purple. I mean, that color is insane. I love it. I've never even seen that color. It's like a... I mean, it's not ultraviolet because you can't see ultraviolet, but it looks like you would call it ultraviolet. These are just cool pictures of the light coming through that window. It's not the same as these other violet flame pictures, but I thought they were cool. And there is violet there, so I stuck them in this album. And I think we've about covered it. So this video kind of rambled on because there was so much to say relating to my journey. But meeting Chris Bledsoe last year tied some things together, because now I know that the violet flame goddess that I saw when I awakened and bilocated to the center of the universe with Source was actually God. I saw God that day, and she just presented herself as this beautiful goddess, which Chris Bledsoe refers to as the Lady. And she's also referred to in that channeled book, The Sophia Code, where they actually mention her dragons. Because I have Chris across the veil, and I have 2 dragons, actually 3 now, and they are silvery, sort of like opalescent or iridescent, but they are like sort of white, silvery, translucent in a way. And I've seen them with purple lightning crackling between them, and they breathe the violet flame. And in the book, the Sophia Code, one of the first things the goddess says, it's the same goddess that I saw, she's God. She talks about her dragons, and they've been referred to. She and the dragons have been referred to in ancient texts as the silvery dragons coming down with lightning. And I had no idea that my dragons were these dragons. And I've never heard anybody else describe them looking like that. Other people's dragons that they talk about are just regular other colors. I've never heard anyone else describe their dragons the way that I describe mine. But it was the same way the goddess described them in the Sophia Code and in those ancient texts that I heard about on a different podcast. So all the pieces are starting to come together, partially because I met Chris Bledsoe last year and then read his book and realized how many things we had in common on our journeys, including having partners that were now across the veil. That has something to do with it, for sure. Okay, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good day.